Good afternoon, everyone. So, in the last class, we have seen about the product design process, and also product development. And we have seen what are the stages involved in product design or the product development process. So we have came across the stages. There were 5 stages: conception, acceptance, execution, translation, and then pre-production. Okay, in the conception stage, it was the idea generation stage, where the mainly the need of the target market, wherever it is targeted, the need of which will be identified, and also the competitive products were reviewed, and the specifications were defined. Then it moved to later moved to the acceptance stage, where the new product viability were investigated and the draft specifications were evaluated. Then next was the execution stage, where a working model or a prototype is made. Then it moved to translation stage, where all the relevant specifications, drawings, manufacturing data, and tooling arrangement, etc., were finalized, and the final product were made and approved for the actual process. Then the last one is the pre-production. That is just before the moving to main production. That is, the main objective is to summarize the whole details of the process, mainly in the case of the large production. And here a pilot test is conducted. A pilot test is conducted under the real environment or the real environmental condition, and it is tested for the customer specifications. Okay, after that, later on it will be provided to the main production. So these were the stages in a product design process. Then we have seen what all were the requirements of a good product design regarding the customer requirements, functional aspects, operational aspects, reliability, manufacturability, aesthetic aspect, etc. Okay, so the first one was the customer requirements. A good product design should meet the customer requirements. Then the functional aspect. Regarding the functional aspect, every product is meant for a particular function, and if the design is good, means that means it should function. It should function, or its primary function should be done. Then regarding the operational aspect, that means there are certain amount of operations to be carried out using this product, or in order to operate this product, it should not be complex, or it should be simple. Then the reliability, each product is intended for a particular time period. Say in case of a car, if it is meant for 10 years, then it should work properly within this 10 years, or throughout this 10 years. If it is working good for 2 years and then it stops working, then it is not reliable. So it is mainly to function, intended to function for a long period of time without any malfunctions. That is reliability. Then manufacturability. Manufacturability mainly means it can be produced in large quantities at minimum production cost. Okay, so for at minimum production cost, large quantities can be manufactured. That is the ability to manufacture. That is manufacturability. If it is good, then the product design will be good. And final, it is the aesthetic aspect. That is the final look. So the customer should have a attraction towards the product. So the product should be attractive, or the aesthetic look should be there. So these were the essential requirements of a good product design. Then we have seen uh, the production function, or the design function. Design functions were mainly two types, that is basic function and then secondary function. So we relate this with the help of an example, that is LCD projector. That is, in the case of a LCD projector, what is the basic function? Basic function is, yeah, to project the output, or whether it is an image or video, whatever may be, to project it, or the output is the basic function. The secondary functions are the next one, that is whether, or it is the supporting functions. That is mainly divided into, subclassified into two, that is a required secondary function and unwanted secondary functions. So these are the byproducts, or the secondary functions. In the secondary functions, the first one, that is the required secondary function. The example is conversion of energy or generation of light in the case of an LCD projector. So in order to work the LCD projector, there should be the energy conversions. That is the electrical energy from the plug point. It is converted to some other means, or it is used to rotate the motor and all, and also create the light forms, light signals, etc., etc. There are numerous energy conversions inside the equipment. So these are all required functions. It is very important and it is required. Next case, there is a unwanted secondary function, that is the generation of heat and noise, etc. These are also the byproducts of this basic functions, but it is not necessary for us, or it may even reduces the efficiency of the operation. So those were called as the unwanted secondary functions. So mainly design function is classified into two, that is basic function and secondary functions, and the secondary functions are again classified into required secondary functions and unwanted secondary functions. Okay, now we'll see what are the main objectives of a product design. Objectives of a product design. So the objectives of a product design. So first one, objectives. First one is the profit generation. Profit generation. Profit generation. Profit generation. Nothing but the profit itself. That is the overall objective. The overall objective is to is the profit generation in the long run. So in the long run, there should be some profit. So that is the first objective of a good product design. Next one, satisfy the customer requirements. Satisfy customer requirements. Satisfy the customer requirements and maximizes the value of the customer at minimum cost and time. Minimum cost and time. Okay, so this is the second objective, that is to satisfy the customer requirements. So the customer requirements should be satisfied, and also maximize the value of customer at how minimum cost and time, that is optimization. This is the second objective. Next, Third one is to achieve the desired product quality. Achieve the desired product quality. Product quality. Next, this should enable the product desired function with desired accuracy, reliability, and strength. That is, perform desired function. Perform desired function. Desired function with desired accuracy, reliability, and strength. Okay. And next is the ergonomics. Regarding ergonomics. Ergonomics. So ergonomics means with removing the fatigue. That is the health issues. We have to consider the health. That is it should follow the product to be used easily with minimum possible fatigue. Minimum possible fatigue. Possible fatigue. And the next one, reduce the unwanted noise, vibration, etc. That is, it should allow the product to be used with minimum noise, vibration, and other hazards. Next, to ensure the productivity and manufacturability. Ensure productivity and manufacturability. So what is productivity and manufacturability? It is the ability to produce. That is productivity. Manufacturability means ability to manufacture. Optimized resources. For all components. That is, we have to make standard design. That means we are keeping some standards, and according to which it will be designed. That is to allow standardization. Allow standardization. Standardization. Next, to have the minimum number of components. That means simplification. The component should not be complex, so we have to simplify. Simplification. Simplification. Then last one, it should provide repair and replacement at low cost. Should provide repair and replacement at low cost. So the repairing and replacement should be made at low cost or made possible at low cost. So these are the objectives of a product design. So for what the product is actually designing, the first one is profit generation. Second one, satisfy the customer requirements at minimum cost and time. Then third is the desired product quality, to achieve the desired product quality. Fourth one, it should perform its desired function with desired accuracy, reliability and strength. And fifth one is regarding the ergonomics. It should be used easily with minimum possible fatigue. Then sixth one, should be used with minimum noise, vibration and other hazards. Seventh, it is to ensure the productivity and manufacturability. Eighth is the to allow standardization in all components. Next was simplification. Simplification, that means to have minimum number of components. Then finally it is to design, the design should provide repair and replacement at low cost. Okay, so these were the objectives of product design. Now we'll move on to next topic, that is break-even analysis. So we will see what is a break-even analysis. Okay, so break-even analysis. This is actually a technique mainly used to study the relationship between total cost, total revenue, and total profits or losses. Total profit or losses. Okay, so break-even analysis, it is mainly used to study the relationship between the total cost, total revenue and total profits or losses or overall over the whole range of the output. Now there are two types of cost. We can see there are costs. The cost of production, regarding the cost of production, we can classify it into two types of cost were there. First one is the fixed cost, and another is the variable cost. So the fixed cost is always fixed, whether it is we are producing 2 units or 3 units, 4 units, whatever may be, 100 units or 1000 units, the cost will be same. For example, in a manufacturing company, whether we are producing 3 units or 4 units, whatever may be, the cost spent for the fan and light over that room, in the particular room, will be same. It is not changing. But what happens is, if the number of components to be produced is increasing, it is dependent on the number of raw materials. So if more and more products are to be developed or produced, then we need more and more raw materials, or the materials we have to or consumable materials, amount of which will be required. So the cost associated with that is termed as the variable cost. That is, the variable cost will be dependent on the number of products developed or the produced. So these are the two types of cost of production. That is, first one is the fixed cost. Fixed cost, which it is not, or it is independent of the number of or volume of production. and the variable cost is dependent on the volume of production. Now we can see from a graph, we will analyze it by a graph, that is we can consider a graph like this, where here you can, the x-axis we can take the production or sales volume, production or sales volume, the quantity of production, that is amount of production or number of units produced, and here you can see the cost and revenue. The cost associated received from the production, you can see consider in the y-axis. Then the fixed cost, whether it is 1 unit, 2 unit, 3 unit, any number, the fixed cost will be like this. The cost will be same. This is the fixed cost. Okay. Total fixed cost. Total fixed cost. Now the variable cost. Variable cost is coming beyond that. That is, it is dependent on the number of products. If no products are produced, then no fixed cost will be there. But in terms of in case of the fixed cost, whether it is produced or not, in the case of that bulb and fan, etc., whether it is not there or the installation, there will be some installation charges. It will not be dependent on the number of products developed, but it should be something. There will be some amount. Anyway, the variable cost. So the starting, the variable cost will be 0. Then it will move upwards. That is, and we are assuming that it is linearly varying. So this is the variable cost. So variable cost will be like this. So this is the variable cost. Actually, the variable cost is like this, and we shift this to here. This is the variable cost. On adding this two graphs, we will get this total cost. Total cost like this. So this is the total cost. Now we will see the revenue. That is the amount we receive by producing this. And we are assuming that if we are producing 2 units, then the 2 units will be delivered, or it will be given to the customer, or it will be sold. The complete amount will be sold, and no product will be kept in the inventory. In that assumption we are taking. So the total revenue we received, that will be also in this fashion. It will be going like this. This is the total revenue. That is the amount we receive by uh, selling this product. So we can see here, starting, this is the total cost and this is the total revenue. Initially, the total cost was higher and the total revenue was zero. That is, if the number of products or the production units is zero, that is, there is no production at all, then at that time the revenue we received is zero, because we are not selling anything. But in that time, there is a cost, that is the installation cost and some other cost, mainly due to the fixed cost that will be there. As the number of products produced increases, we can see the difference becomes small. It is reducing, and at a particular point, both the cost will be same. And after that, the revenue will be increasing and the cost will be reducing. So here, that is this particular area, we can say this is a loss. Here we have the loss, and after this point, we will get a profit. That is the amount we receive. That is the total revenue is greater than the cost. So in that case, we will get the profit. So between this, we can see a point over here, and this point is termed as the break-even point, or BEP. So it is a point where there is no profit or loss. So here it is the point of the sales volume where the total revenue and or otherwise we can say there is no profit or no loss. Now we will see the relations regarding this associated with this break-even point. Okay, so let us say, let capital F be the fixed cost, small v be the variable cost per unit. Variable cost is dependent on the number of units. So variable cost per unit, that is, if we are producing 2 units, then 2 that will be the cost. Small s is a selling price per unit. Selling price per unit. This is also dependent on the number of products sold. Now capital Q, it is the quantity of output, quantity produced, or the volume of output. Quantity. So the total cost. So we can say total cost. We can represent it as TC. Total cost can be written as fixed cost plus variable cost. So this is the sum of the total cost is the sum of fixed cost and variable cost. We can see here. This was the variable cost, and this was the fixed cost, and the total cost is the sum of these two, that is over here. This is the total cost. Now we can write it in the terms of F, B and S. That is, this is the fixed cost plus variable cost. Variable cost is B into number of units, that is Q. That is F plus B into Q. F plus B into Q. This is the total cost. Now sales revenue. Sales revenue, I can represent it as SR, will be sales price per unit. Sales price per unit, that is S, into quantity, that is Q. That is S into Q. S into Q. Okay. So what happens is, at the point of break even, we have seen here, at the point of break even, these two values are same. So we can equate the two, and we can say at break even point, these two will be same. That is F plus BQ will be same as that of S into Q. Or we can say F is equal to Q into S minus B. Or we can say Q equal to F by S minus V. This much units. That is Q. Q is the break-even point. Break-even point units. Point units. Break-even point units. That is, at least this much unit of products should be produced. There will be some loss. So beyond this units, if we are producing, means we will get a profit, and below this point or below this amount, if we are producing, then we will get the loss. So this is the this is how you can find the break-even point or the quantities to be produced. Now, as a note, you may note that the note total sales revenue. Total sales revenue. Total sales revenue equal to number of units sold. Number of units sold into selling price of an unit. Now, total sales revenue, minus fixed cost plus variable cost, gives you the profit or loss. Okay. Now, at BEP, that is a break-even point. What is the profit? That is, profit will be 0. And when the number of units sold is less than BP, there will be a loss. And when the number of units sold is greater than BP, there will be profit. So these were the things. Now we will see the assumptions of break-even analysis. What all were the assumptions? There are some certain assumptions made. First one, the production and sales are same. Production and sales are same. That means which all or what all products are produced, it will be sold. But in actual case, if you produce say 6,000 products in a company, at a time this 6,000 will not be sold. Maybe 4,000 will be sold, and the rest or the remaining 2,000 will be kept as inventory, kept in the godown. But here we are making an assumption that what all things are produced will be sold at the same time. So this is the first assumption, that is production and sales are same. Next is the fixed cost remains the same as and with respect to the production volume. That is, a fixed cost is fixed. That is, we have seen there are two types of cost, and regarding the fixed cost, it should be same. We are assuming that the fixed costs are always same, but it may change. It will be changing depending on the number of products. That is, for the same example, that is regarding the installation. For 10 to 1,000 number of units to be produced, we need a particular installation, or say our lighting, our infrastructures, everything will be capable. But beyond that, if it is producing, means we have to extend our establishments. So in that case, the fixed cost, the installation cost may change. So at that time, the fixed cost also will be changing. So our assumption will be wrong. Anyway, we are assuming that the fixed cost is always same. Next, third one. So third one will be regarding the variable cost. So we are assuming that the variable costs are varying linearly. Variable cost varies linearly, but in the actual case, it may not be varying linearly. It may change in another manner, exponentially, maybe exponentially, or sometimes it may not change. Anyway, we are assuming that the variable costs are varying linearly. And fourth one, the selling price per unit remains same irrespective of the quantity sold. That is the selling price per unit, that is small s. This value is same, it remains same with respect to irrespective of the items produced. But in the actual case, what happens is, we can see, if you are purchasing something from the wholesale shop, we will get a discount, right? In the same manner, we are also giving the discount. If we are producing more and more selling more products, then usually we will be giving some discounts. But in our assumption, we are saying that the selling price will not be changing depending on the production. So S, or the selling price per unit, that is selling price per unit does not change, or independent on number of production. Okay, so these are the assumptions of a break-even analysis. First one is the production and sales are same, then the fixed cost is same, variable cost varies linearly, and finally the selling price should be independent of the number of production units. So these are the assumptions of a break-even analysis. So in the next class, we will see some problems based on this. Now I think it's time to wind up.